Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome back. So in this video I want to talk about the difference between learning a language and acquiring a language, or otherwise known as the skill building method and the immersion method. So learning a language or skill building is what we traditionally do in schools and in classroom settings and in lessons in general. It's where you are given set rules like grammar rules. You are told to memorize like lists of vocab. You implement this vocab with the grammar rules that you've learned. Maybe read some short passages and then progress kind of like building blocks on top of each other. To acquire a language, or the immersion method, is to basically get mass input, meaning lots of listening and lots of reading. And they both have their place, in my opinion. You do get people that are like hardcore one way or hardcore the other, but I feel like there is a place for both of them and they actually go hand in hand. So first, if we talk about skill building, one of the things that the like immersion camp will say about skill building is that you have something called the monitor. This is what Stephen Krashen calls it. And it's basically, before you speak, you like the sentence will like come into your head. You'll like analyze the sentence. This is the monitor. You'll analyze the sentence, make any like grammatical changes that you might have to make, or any kind of changes in general to the words or whatever it is. And then once you've kind of made sure it's all correct, then you produce the sentence, so you say it. This, the immersion camp will say, is highly ineffective and somewhat inhibits your ability to speak. And they say that basically this is like, it's almost impossible to like do this in real time. So for example, if you were having a conversation with someone and the conversation's flowing and the ideas are there and you're not like quite thinking, it would be hard to, for every sentence that you say, to stop, pause, check it's all right. You'd be like really slow and kind of clunky with how you produce the language. Whereas the people that do it the immersion method, they tend to be much more like fluent, and we talked about this word fluent. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Tend to be more fluid, let's say fluid, and natural, and they just have an overall sense of ease as they produce the language. This also works with understanding the language as well. So the people that go down the traditional like skill building method, like learning a language, they tend to not do a lot of listening, which is, in my opinion, a massive error, because your listening skills will lag behind your reading skills. It tends to be reading dominant for the most part. So for example, the people that do the skill building method, this is very, very, very common, that you will find you'll be able to read a sentence, understand it fine, but if you were to hear it, you might not get it. You know what I mean? Or the other way around. Say if you hear a sentence and you just don't understand what he said, but then if that sentence was to be put in front of you, you'd understand it completely. This is the con, you could say, for the skill building method, because it does tend to just not focus on listening as much. And the immersion method, that has a lot of input, so a lot of listening and a lot of reading. So they don't seem to have this problem. Their understanding seems to be a lot stronger than the people who do the skill building. So also what we say is that the conscious knowledge that you learn through skill building doesn't really translate to your subconscious knowledge when producing the language. So you will find that, for example, if this person who does the skill building method or the traditional learning method, they might be able to write something very well because they've got the time and they can correct it, look over it. But when they go to produce the language, if they try to produce it without the monitor, just let it go, it tends to be just a lot of mistakes. And I'm not calling anyone out here, like, if this happens to you, that's normal. That happens to all of us. But the point is that with the immersion, it kind of fixes this problem. But the con is that it takes a lot longer. So for example, the skill building method, you will get results instantly. You will memorize this list and maybe this phrase, and you can say like كيف حالك أنا بخير, like, you can, so you feel like you've made progress instantly. Whereas the immersion method, it takes it's like what do you say, it's like a delayed reward. But you'll find that over time the immersion learners will completely surpass the skill building learners, and they'll be much more natural in the language. So how do we reconcile between this? My view is that the skill building helps the immersion in terms of, when you do a book in skill building where you're told that this is the grammar rule and like this is why it's like that, or this means this, it makes your immersion like much easier, because you've almost got like hooks in your brain now that they'll hook onto stuff as you're doing your immersion. It's not just all just flying over your head. So I do believe that although the conscious knowledge doesn't transfer into your subconscious knowledge when outputting the language, it will help in the immersion, in the input, and the more input you get, then the better your output is going to be. And the more you do this, the more it will go to your subconscious, and the more you'll be able to speak freely and easily. So then we have the issue of how many hours of immersion do you need to do? The answer, in simple terms, is as much as you possibly can. That's the easiest answer. As much as you can possibly cope with and manage without your brain melting is the best amount that you can do. But to have like a set program and a set like curriculum that you're doing as well, I think that will help you massively in your immersion. Especially if you're, Ankiing words, so you're like grasping the vocab, the vocab starts to stick. Anything that you can do to make your immersion easier and more comprehensible, that will give you better results. Which brings me on to the next point of comprehensible input. Comprehensible input is a term that is used within the immersion community, meaning it's input, whether you're watching something, listening to something, reading something, but it's like, it's on your level, it's comprehensible. It doesn't have to be fully comprehensible, but somewhat comprehensible. So they have a term called I+1, meaning, I think it means input plus one. Allahu a'lam. But for example, an I+1 sentence would be, say you've got 5 words in a sentence and you know 4. So the one word out of that sentence, that's your +1. And 9 times out of 10, you can pick it up from the context as well. This is acquiring a language. This is what acquisitional learning is. And that's the most natural form of learning. That's how we learn our native language. As a child, growing up, we acquired the language. So to combine between both, in my opinion, will give you the best results, inshallah. So that wasn't too detailed, guys. I mean, there is more that can be said on it, but it might, I might start rambling a bit, to be honest. So I'm going to cut it off there, and inshallah I'll see you in the next one. If you do want to learn Arabic, then I do offer one-to-one lessons and group lessons. So I'll put the email in the description below. So if you want to learn, just send me an email, and I'd love to help you. I'd love to help as many people as possible learn this language, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.